Refugee Girls. This painting here shows three heads turned towards the viewer, passing by as the viewer is looking, caught in a transient moment of the transitory, individuals with different emotional expressions. Refugees, dispossessed, itinerant. In a forthcoming monograph on my work titled Refuge, Graham Gillock considers how this image presents the notion of the fugitive itself as an aesthetic imperative that constitutes the very notion of modernity, as famously first formulated by the poet Charles Baudelaire in his seminal essay, The Painter of Modern Life, in 1863. By modernity, he announces, I mean the ephemeral, the fugitive, the contingent, the other half of art, whose other half is the eternal and the immutable. The complexity of migration means artists of diaspora cultures in Britain continue to be thus identified, historically marginalised and inadequately represented in mainstream cultural frameworks, such as art collections in key British museums and art galleries, leaving an imbalance for the wider community to experience contemporary art from its immigrant artistic community. Migrations, Journeys into British Art exhibition 2012 at Tate Britain highlighted the contribution of immigration as central to the Tate collection and an understanding of the evolving British history and culture. Rashid Areen's curated exhibition, The Other Story, 1989 at Hayward Gallery, continues to be cited as a seminal show. This highlights the lack of dedicated attention to this area of British art, that The Other Story continues to be cited thus, decades later. It was the first retrospective exhibition of British, African, Caribbean and Asian artists, but did not include women of South Asian backgrounds, whilst Anish Kapoor declined the invitation to contribute work to this show, presumably not wishing to be within this orbit. Dislocations caused by migration and racism can engender vibrant new juxtapositions and developments in art. Negotiating intersecting identities involving race and gender is challenging, but also enables distinct expression. Ambiguous and shifting ground is fertile territory for an artist, enabling long geographical perspectives and fresh angles on reality. In my work, I believe, and by other artists, very, very many other artists, supported by curators, writers, etc. Right, certain images stem from news stories, as in Shadows on the Sea, inspired by images of migrants on boats in the Mediterranean, familiar yet strange. Painting. My art practice is concerned with painting as a vibrant contemporary expression encompassing ambiguities arising from transcultural dislocations and amalgams and hybridizations in the politics of inclusion and exclusion for diaspora artists in contested spaces in Britain and beyond, and with how dislocations engender developments beyond reductive stereotypes. I arrived in Britain from India at age 9. As an artist, in the mainstream art world, I noticed the relative absence of the presence of the experience of migrant settlers. I consider the symbiotic relationship between South Asia and Britain, the stereotype of the fashionably exotic, which ignores the complexities of colonial history, contemporary race and gender politics. I embrace the rich ambiguities arising from transcultural dislocations and amalgams of aesthetic language and cross-cultural experiences, leading to abridgments and hybridizations. Next. This photograph is from my project, commissioned by Alnor Mitha, Director of Asia Triennial Manchester, which involved engaging with communities in Cheetham Hill in North Manchester and resulted in my Memories exhibition at People's History Museum, Manchester for ATM 11. Of my photographic works, paintings and collection of everyday objects reflecting British South Asian life, including clothing, prayer mats and turban. Importantly, the ATM presents Asia internationally and Embedded in Britain, showing work by artists from Asia and Britain, impacting on different communities. Other shows and projects have done this, a bare handful and often cited as landmarks, such as The Other Story. And some museums, e.g. Cartwright Hall in Bradford, have been dedicatedly collecting work by artists in or from Asia. Yet the South Asian diaspora experience, especially female, remains marginalised. Projects ongoing, e.g. at Glenvivian Art Gallery in Swansea, Brent Biennale in London, the ATM, London Asia Art Worlds at Paul Mellon Centre, will offer more readdressment. The ATM, or Asia Triennial Manchester, is Europe's only triennial dedicated to contemporary visual art on the theme of Asia, celebrating diverse communities and exploring cultural, artistic and political debates. The theme for the 2018 triennial was "Who do you think you really are?" a question often asked of migrants. The provocation invited artistic, cultural and political responses to narratives around Asian identities, their intersection with present cultural preoccupations on the nature of identity, organised around dialectics of gender and sexuality, community and migration, technology and humanity. Next. I have painted people I know alongside my main interest since 2005 of depicting the anonymous nude body. Here, a couple is simultaneously together and apart, in the now and in memories of cultural customs. Next. Levi Tafari is a UK-based dub poet who posed in traditional clothes from Ghana. These portrayals collectively make the often invisible visible in terms of diversity, including self-portraiture, a series of which is currently in progress. Portraiture in my paintings reflects the multicultural makeup of city life. Alno Mitha commissioned me to produce a show of portraits of prominent British South Asians for a solo exhibition that toured to venues including Waterman's Art Centre in London in 2003 to 2004, depicting people including Baroness Pola Udin and the trade unionist Deepak Chuhan, no relation, whose portrait is now in Tameside Museum's collection where the show started. And this show was received very well by people, including people from South Asian communities. Identities, as I've said, are ambiguous. E.g., many South Asian diaspora artists have dual or multiple heritage. Overtly, or as subtext, in their work, they express these ambiguities, enriching the culture, complemented by enrichments by artists with no South Asian roots, but strongly influenced by Asia, there and as embedded here. I've heard of arguments between Sonia Boyce and Frank Bowling on what black art should be. Apart from the problematics of defining black, I would question the need for a reductive either or binary choice, as art is about multiple things in a world that is multifaceted with multiple interactions. Yet, I am pleased to present my work in exhibitions and projects where these identifiers are an important focus, appreciative of strategies promoting pluralistic culture and for promoting diverse audiences. Next. Mission is painted by Matthew Krishanu, whose paintings are currently in an exhibition with Neeru Ratnam in London. Born in the UK, he spent some years as a child in Bangladesh. His work suggests duality, being in a space within and between two cultures. Here, Christian rituals seem to be somehow other as a legacy of European colonialism. The images show specific time and memory, painted with a beautiful flow of colour, suggesting both intimacy and detachment. He has said that in painting, he is drawn to expressing the sense of an interior life of a figure using minimal means. that if he adds too much, then the viewer can't project as much of a life into it, and that it becomes too prescriptive or too photographic or too representational. Next. Untitled by Raksha Patel shows a kind of blood fountain exploring ideas about infinity, cycles of life and regeneration, the red liquid symbolic of life force, energy, and content in blood such as DNA and ancestral memory. She paints of death and of life, a cyclical linked to Buddhist meditation and how the body disintegrates and changes moment to moment, like the nature of water or an ever-evolving river. In Hindu iconography, red relating to femininity, white to masculinity. The fountain, a universal symbol of life and perpetual renewal. The patterns and shapes painted here are of liquid moving, insinuating psychedelia and states of consciousness. Next. Coronite by Jasmine Creed considers the effects of COVID in the industrialized landscape of Halifax. Women of South Asian background huddled together wearing masks near a sculptural monument, a fountain in the Western classical style in an otherwise empty space in front of the Peace Hall, once a textile manufacturing site, now a museum. She considers historic and contemporary migration of people and trade in cotton in the textile industry in a dramatically lit image with empathy for the consequences of the pandemic. Next. Number 700 Reflectors by Rana Begum has 35,000 coloured reflectors occupying the full length of Lewis Cubitt Square at King's Cross, London. She is inspired by the complexity, transience, and chance encounters of the city, distilling spatial and visual experience into ordered form. Her exquisitely refined works in a variety of materials and sizes, including metal and paper, blur boundaries between sculpture, painting, and architecture, exploring geometry, pattern, colour, and light, influenced by minimalism, abstraction, Islamic art and architecture, creating a sense of transcendence. Next. Huge sculptures by Ravinder Reddy are often sited outdoors, portraying heads and figures, combining the specific with the archetypal. This figure is in an interior, a subject I focus on. Curator Amrita Dalu came to my studio and thought my use of colour reminded her of Rajasthan. And I have worked with artists from South Asia, such as Imran Qureshi, based in Lahore. I arranged a residency he undertook in the UK at the start of his career. There is a slippage for many artists of the South Asian diaspora who are seen to be not Asian enough or too Asian, often ignored in favour of artists living and working in South Asia who may be perceived as more exotic. Many British South Asians have a British sensibility and are considered foreign in South Asia, yet diaspora artists have a unique contribution to make in a culture that has been shaped by amalgams and continues to be shaped by juxtapositions, intersections, and hybridizations. Women of South Asian roots in Britain are in many ways outsiders inside in a particular way, reflected, e.g., by British South Asian women having about 30% higher suicide rates than the rest of the population, connected with ongoing South Asian cultural constructs about family and honour. Next. As well as being at home with art such as of Ravinder Reddy, I have felt at home, e.g. among the figurative paintings in the 2018 All Too Human exhibition at Tate Britain, that highlighted artists loosely grouped as the School of London. And this is not a slide from that show. In that show, the last section showcased women artists such as Paula Rego, Jenny Saville, Cicely Brown, Celia Paul, as a group, pointedly signalling female perspectives. The inclusion here of paintings by Lynette Yadom-Boakai introduced the contemporary cross-cultural in our cities. I'm interested in how women artists have operated in what has been an overwhelmingly male domain, including in their relations with male artists. Next. For ATM 2018, my solo show at Gallery Oldham was a traditional display of paintings, with a companion solo show at home of my paintings within an installation of objects and involving performances by dancers in my staged yet functioning painting studio in the main gallery. Next. In an exhibition catalogue from Liverpool's Victoria Gallery and Museum, art historian Rina Arya considers that my art combines Western aesthetic traditions, such as the carcass-like forms of painters like Chaim Soutine and Francis Bacon, with the intricate expressive dance configurations of Indian classical statuettes. But it overrides cultural differences and is a statement about the living body and the plurality of experiences that are comprised by this state. Figure in an interior, as here, is an abiding theme. I explore what a female gaze might be, at least insofar as I am a female artist. The paintings are reimagined from a combination of observation, memory, and photographs I take or see on media platforms. I use vivid colour in expressionistic paintings, in depictions of the body seemingly confined and isolated in a room-like space. The images function as an arena for exploring existential themes of love, conflict, and desire, and psychologies in symbiosis of male and female, home and unhome. Next. Woman and Baby shows my fascination with how to portray the human form as an organic body with a sense of interiority, of physical and psychological presence, often in motion, within interior spaces suggested by simplified areas of colour and lines and shifting viewpoints. The configuration of the body stems from its energy and potency to express changing dynamics of how the body is presented and viewed, including as a spectacle. Next. The Dancer shows another ongoing theme. The large scale of my paintings creates a frisson, visceral and provocative, a jolt to the eyes through the intense colour, the physicality of paint applied in dynamic gestures. Next. As in Bride, the body is presented as contested space, politicized territory for subservience and dominance, resistance and independence, control or being out of control, relative to the viewer and the viewed, fractured or tense or calm. The images concern the gaze, voyeurism, eroticism, race, and cultural interactions. A sense of networks of power is implicit in figures operating as both protagonists and recipients within social mores. Red here may be seen as the iconic red used for brides to wear in South Asian cultures, where it symbolizes fertility, among many other things. Next. The painterly depictions of the body express a sense of dislocations and alienations, including self-alienation and self-awareness, questioning stereotypes of gender, but also an assertion of the psyche as a strong force that is almost inviolable. A sense of intimacy in the view of the figures suggests privacy, but within narratives of contemporary politics of gender and race. The viewing creates a sense of disorientation and reorientation in how spaces are created and how the human form is positioned, sometimes upside down, nearly always centrally located. Boundaries defining the figures seem to shift, as do near and far viewpoints in the space they occupy. The painterly exploration veils yet reveals feelings of displacement, conflict, and desire, challenging the tropes of exploitation or celebration. Next. The body is exposed as if in privacy or on show, assembled and disassembled, questioning how it feels to be a sensorial physical body, a sentient composite of flesh, with the conscious and the subconscious mind as a place of refuge and security, or confinement and closure, or interacting with the wider world, linking to Freudian analyses of the effects of repressed memories. Next. The paintings arrive through many iterations, demolished and remade many times by design and accident. I like to create a kind of mess where I have to then try and put it together and try and make a coherent image. It feels as if I just happen to be there while the paintings kind of arrive by themselves. Next. Two figures in a pink room are in a kind of relationship, possibly suggesting different timescales, with the colours and space split into kinds of spaces and shifting perspectives. The images may seem uncertain and uncomfortable, reflecting how people can feel navigating the world today. The woman in the foreground seems to be on a kind of plinth, in a stage-like space, the configuration charged with energy and emotion. Next. And this is the final slide, a painting in progress, as you'll be able to see behind me when I'm on view, as I'm talking from my studio at the moment. Anyway, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very